Welcome back. It is after 3 o'clock in the morning, and Donald Trump has already declared victory. Let's bring in Robert Costa, our chief election and campaign correspondent. And Robert, what will another term with Donald Trump in office look like?
Nora, I've been speaking to my sources close to the former president. Spoke to him earlier today at length about how he envisions his presidency, which is on the horizon here, it looks like, if the numbers pan out for him here at CBS News. You see in Donald Trump someone who's totally different now than he was in 2016 in terms of how he perceives his own presidency. Why? Because he no longer has to run for re-election. Once he enters the White House again in 2025, should he win, he is going to, on foreign policy and domestic policy, not be constrained by the prospect of having to seek out the support of voters once again. He also has a full grasp of executive power. You are going to see him push immediately for some kind of deal with Russia's war with Ukraine. You are going to see him try to reshape American foreign policy when it comes to tariffs and economic policy, the United States relationship with NATO. All of that would be open for discussion. On domestic policy, an extension of the Trump tax cuts from 2017 to make sure the business community stays in line with the Republican Party. You could see Lina Khan, the head of the Federal Trade Commission, pushed out of her position. She has been filing suits against some of the major corporations in this country and around the world, trying to constrain the tech market in terms of their size and power. And you see in Trump someone who wants to focus on the border, and that could use the military. We could see military force now being used, as Cecilia and her colleagues and others have reported at CBS News. Most importantly, what we see from a Trump presidency is an executive branch that will be used by Trump to imprint policy that's in his image and likeness. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., someone who has been a progressive figure in this country for decades, now will have a real hand on the steering wheel when it comes to health policy in this country.
Donald Trump says he'll let RFK Jr. do what he wants with women's health care.
And this is someone who has opposed vaccine mandates. We don't have time to get into every single position of Mr. Kennedy, but you have a coalition that's not a traditional conservative coalition. And when it comes to abortion rights and other issues, conservatives might be frustrated by how Trump took this position on abortion, how he responded to reporters earlier today. But talking to my sources in the evangelical community, the Catholic community, the Jewish community, I will tell you this. Tonight, they all say to CBS News they believe they will have a seat at the table with Trump. The 47th president, they believe, will give them a full hearing, regardless of what he said during the campaign, to hear how they want to overhaul social policy, economic policy, foreign policy.
Well, Bob, you heard him tonight.
Staff. Who will be Donald Trump's chief of staff?
The leading candidate, I'm told at this moment, is Susie Wiles, who you just saw on stage, someone who has become a confidant. Trump likes that she's low-key. As you saw tonight, she didn't want to speak. Chris LaCivita, who has been her partner, said a few words. I'm told LaCivita is not interested in necessarily being chief of staff. But you could also have someone from the business community. Now, you have a lot of business leaders who are angling for positions, but Trump, as he has told many people privately, essentially wants to be his own chief of staff. Kevin McCarthy, the former House Speaker, is someone whose name has been mentioned, but he is not, I'm told, interested in coming into that role.
We heard him tonight say promises
chief of staff
made.
is a real dangerous thing. Jimmy Carter tried that, and it's a disaster.
Don't they say a doctor who is his own patient or a lawyer who's his own client is a fool? But you heard him say in his speech, promises made, promises kept. And Maya Angelou used to say, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Do we have any reason to doubt that he won't do everything that he said he's going to do?
And more. What's so notable about this election is that former President Trump believes he has not just won an election, but he has affirmed a movement in this country that I think back, and the Democrats are going to have a moment for the next 4 years where they think about their future. I remember sitting over breakfast with Bernie Sanders, the Vermont senator, 10 years ago, and he told me that the future in this country would come down to the issue of class. Class more than anything, how people feel economic pain. And he said it's either going to be the Democrats or Republicans who speak to the economic pain people feel in this country. And he still believes, based on my reporting, that he would have won against Trump in 2016. President Biden believes he would have beat Trump in 2016 because they believe they speak to that economic pain. Biden wins in 2020 with a similar coalition trying to speak to working people. But the question now for Democrats is, can they win back some of these people? And it might not be appealing to the Liz Cheney Republicans, but appealing to those who like Senator Bernie Sanders, those who are searching. We encounter in our reporting all the time people in this country who are not seeing themselves as political, but feel pain about the future of their well-being, their families' opportunity.
But Kamala Harris always talked about the working class and the middle class and what she wanted to do.
But it was
for
a compressed campaign.
Okay.
Just a few weeks.
Did they not believe her?
It's not that they didn't believe her. So many voters I met feel like they didn't fully know her in terms of speaking to their grievances. They respected her as a vice president of the United States, but she was a relatively low vice president, low profile, with working with President Biden. And running from August to now is not easy, even if you're a perfect politician with a perfect campaign.
You know, one thing we haven't seen a delay in is the world leaders who are coming out and congratulating Donald Trump, even though he is still short of the 270 electoral votes at this hour. Two of the first conservative leaders, two of his biggest fans, Hungary's Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, one of the most problematic members of NATO, who has put his body oftentimes in between yes votes to approve more funding for Ukraine. Also, now the head of a very far right-wing government in Israel, the most far right in Israel's history of existence, Benjamin Netanyahu, coming out and celebrating him, somebody who has actually been calling Donald Trump as the president in waiting for months and making calculations, we know and have reported, about what his plans are for the future of the wars he is waging based on the outcome of what happened tonight.
And we know that other leaders have been speaking with Donald Trump privately, have visited him. They haven't been reported publicly, but many of them have maintained close relationships with him.
That's right. Leaders in the Gulf, leaders in Europe as well. The Prime Minister of Poland was deployed by the Allies to try to convince him to change his position on Ukraine. Very concerned that the vice president he has chosen would affirm an isolationist view that would indicate that there are very big problems and perhaps wind in the sails of Vladimir Putin, despite the fact that he is losing a number of soldiers on the battlefield. You
know, we didn't get a chance to talk to Gary Cohn about all of this, but when you think of two of the items in the Trump agenda, the promises he's going to keep, tariffs, 40% of the American economy is trade related. So even if Trump doesn't do the full Megillah, you're talking about massive disruption or plan for massive disruption in 40% of the economy or more, and then immigration. So much of the work, you want to build all that new housing? Who does the building of that new housing? The people that Donald Trump wants to deport. And when you think about just the economic upheaval that he's promising and how that will cycle through, you know, we've been talking about the voters who feel like he heard them and understands them and will fight for them, but the policies he's advocating for, how those match up with those expectations, that will be fascinating to watch.